Hello, everybody. My guest today is Amit Bendov. He's the co-founder and CEO of Gong.io, the number one conversion and conversation intelligence platform for sales. He brings more than 20 years of leadership experience in hypergrowth enterprise software startups, managing product, marketing, and sales for global corporations. Prior to founding Gong, Amit was CEO of SiSense and CMO of Panaya. I believe I said that right. Amit, are you ready to take us to the top?
Yeah, totally.
All right. So Gong, you said in the bio there, you said the number one conversation intelligence platform. Who's ranking? How do you know that?
Well, we've just actually it's getting better than that. So we've seen the latest ranking on Jeet the Crowd, just kind of like the Yelp for B2B software technologies, and Gong has been rating number one not only among conversation intelligence platform people understanding voice, but in all sales tools, and in fact was number 3 rated company in all of Silicon Valley, B2B tech company. So number 4 is Google.
That's great.
So how do I know we were number 1? I mean, we're by far the highest rated. We're totally off the charts.
Yeah. So just to be clear, it's based off rating. I mean, there's all kinds of other ways to measure the success of a business. I hope to dive more into your story and understand that. As you know, obviously CallRail is aggressive in the space. There's a lot of startups, call tracking metrics, Phone Wagon, super small, just raised around. So I want to dive more into what you're doing differently. Let's start there. So what year did you launch the company in?
So we've launched it in late 2016. We started a beta. We've been in alpha and beta design mode for about a year, and we started selling general availability about a year ago, January last year.
Okay, and tell folks that are not familiar with the product, can you tell a customer story of how they're using it?
Yeah, so most of our customers are sales organizations in companies with anywhere from 10 to hundreds of salespeople, and they use Gong to understand what's going on in a conversation. Gong listens to sales conversation where salespeople are talking with customers, and then it helps salespeople improve their pitch by highlighting areas where they can improve, anywhere from becoming better listeners to positioning companies and how to get clear next steps. And it provides managers with insights where people need coaching. So it shows them like problem calls or great calls or spots in the areas where they could coach their teams on and get better and convert more deals.
Got it. So you're doing things like, hey, this salesperson who constantly beats quota uses the word pricing within the first 2 minutes of a sales call. Everyone who's missing quota, they wait till the last 2 minutes. You should tell them to do it or talk about pricing earlier on.
Kind of, yeah. So you got it right. The subtlety here, it's not just words, it's patterns that are more complex. What kind of questions do we ask? What kind of topics, or how much time do you dedicate to pricing on a call? And should it be on a first call or second call or early in the call or late in the call?
Okay. And give me a general sense, just so we understand the target market you're serving. I mean, average customer is paying you what per year? Are we talking $1,000, $100, $1 million, 10,000?
It's anywhere from 10,000s, and for larger customers, it could be hundreds of thousands.
Okay, but what would you say a fair average is, like 20, 30 grand, something like that?
Usually it's in the tens of thousands, yes.
Okay, got it. And are that's per seat or per company?
It's 10,000s is per company, but usually we price based on a number of sales people that the customers have.
Got it. So you're typically selling, I'm going to make this up, like 10 to 20 seat deals into an organization, and that deal size is typically a $30,000 ACV, maybe on average in first year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So you're in alpha for a while. 2016 is launch. You're in alpha for a while. You build. You launch the product. Now, have you bootstrapped so far? Have you raised? And if I think you're going to break my heart because you're in California, I'm assuming you've raised. How much have you raised?
Are you sitting down? So we've raised a $6 million seed and a $20 million Series A. Gong is relies on deep technology. It's not easy to bootstrap something like that. So we have like a research team and a development team, and there's a lot of development. It's pretty deep in technology.
6 million is big for a seed. I don't think you did a convertible note at that level. Did you price the seed round?
Yeah.
Interesting. You priced the seed. So obvious question, how'd you come up with a valuation that early? I imagine you were pre-revenue at the time.
Yeah. All we had was, I think we had like 8 slides. We had a deck and we have an idea, and I have a reputation and track record. So this is Gong is the fourth company that I'm leading, and three others have achieved over $1 billion in the combined shareholder value, including like an IPO and an exit.
And you were the founders, or you were part of the executive team there?
At Gong, I'm the co-founder. So the other companies, I was either like as a CEO or one of the founding teams, but I've always joined pre-revenue. But then there's something like an idea, a registered company or something, and a technical founders. Gong is the first one that actually started completely from scratch that I've incorporated.
I love that. Okay, so you have some history. You had some slides, and that is what you're able to raise the $6 million on. You raised 20 after that. What's team size today?
We are 52 people.
Okay, 52 people. And break that down for me. How many of those folks are sales versus engineers versus other?
So we have about, out of that, if I'm not mistaken, it's the numbers change on a daily basis, but 35 are in R&D and product.
Yep, that makes sense. So there's a lot of tech that goes into this. What have you scaled to today in terms of total customers working with you?
We have close to 200 customers.
Okay, and those
within 1 year.
Within 1 year. No, it's great.
Yeah.
Those are, just to be clear, those are 200 companies, and each one has some number of seats under them.
Yes.
Okay, got it. So, if I take the 200 customers times a $30,000 average ACV in year one, you guys are north of 500 grand per month in the first year. That's pretty good, right?
We're in the millions of dollars of ARR right now within the first year.
Yeah, no, it's impressive
very
growth.
Fast, yeah.
It's impressive growth. But is that math right? You're generally doing about 500 grand per month right now?
I'm not going to comment like on specific numbers or metric. It's something that we share, but we had an amazing first year.
Yeah, well, just to be clear, I'm multiplying your numbers. So is the 200 customer number wrong, or is the $30,000 year one ACV wrong? If that number is not accurate,
I said that I didn't say 30,000. I said that our numbers in tens of thousands. Okay, and that there is a range. There are some very large deals and some of them are very smaller. So the average, I didn't give the average.
Well, you said the average is in the tens of thousands, right? So I'm going to assume it's north of 10,000, but less than 50,000, 30,000's in the middle. So we could go way lower or way bigger. But when you say you had a great year one, I don't let founders get away with that because some people just totally lie. And it's a lot of, we sold for $100 million, but it's a $99 million earnout over 30 years that we're never going to see. And they're full of crap. So I try and get people to share numbers, right? So when you say you're in the millions of growth in year one, I think that's really, really healthy. We'll leave it at that and move on. Tell me more about how once you built the tech, you built such a great product, right? You invested $6 million in getting this thing off the ground. What communication channels did you use to find the people that would be willing to pay for that?
So I've started even when I said that all we had was a chart. That was a PowerPoint deck. I lied a little bit. So what I did early on, even before we raised the money, I called some 50 VP of sales that I knew and some that I didn't know and asked them, listen, we're looking to build something like that. Is that something that you're going to buy, and how much would you be willing to pay for it? Okay. And we got fantastic validation up front. So we communicated with people up front, validated, we're not the only curious one thinking about this idea. And then when we had something that we could test, okay, we didn't even think about selling in the first year. We just said, let's get some data from customers so we can start training the AI models and develop the product on. So we reached out to a dozen friends and family companies that we know and asked them, hey, can you try the product and just give us some data so we can start training the AI model? And then we saw that they're actually using it, which surprised us. And
measured by what? Like, are you measuring call volume in the first month? Like, what do you have to get people to do to get them sticky quickly?
Log in. So call volume doesn't mean Gong records the call. So the fact someone recording call doesn't mean that they actually use the product. Right, that's what we learned early on. So we check engagement in number of ways. So how many logins and how many people are logins like 3 times a day or 4 times a day, and we saw early on that it was pretty engaging. We did some optimization. People were engaged more, and then within 5 months into the beta, we said we did a trial close. So everybody, beta is over, time to buy, and 11 out of the 12 companies bought.
Okay. And how many people? So you had 50 call random. By the way, those 50 initial calls you made, I mean, where'd you get the phone numbers from? Who were they? Your friends?
Yeah, so some of them were friends, some of them were friends and friends, and people that we know. So just from the network and network of the network.
Okay, got it. So of the 50, you then put 12 into a beta program. They start using it. You're measuring logons per seat per day. When you say beta's over, you have to buy 11 of them purchase. So did you price it too cheaply?
No, not at all. It wasn't like people paid us like tens of of dollars.
Yeah, but that's
So
a
we
high
had like,
conversion rate.
Yeah. Actually, the 12 company bought a few months ago. So now it's 12 out of 12.
Well, so that's more to my point, though,
was,
Amit. This is a big pricing discussion, right? That's 100% conversion rate. You might say you left significant money on the table. How did you come up with price?
So first so when we did the validation, we asked people how much they were willing to pay, and they said $50 per user per month. And we said, okay, that we thought that we can and should be charging more, but we said, okay, that's good enough to start. I mean, it's in the ballpark. And then we charge actually more, and people paid. I mean, the challenge was that this was not a planned expense. It's not the line item that people had in their budget, so they had to come up with that. Someone has to go to the CFO and justify $50,000 mid-year. That was like May, June that they didn't plan for. But everybody says, listen, we haven't planned for it, but we definitely do not want this to go away. So that was the overwhelming response.
That's a lot. Just to be clear, I mean, if you're doing $50 a seat and they have to go get 50 grand a budget, you're selling 1,000-seat deals. There's 1,000 salespeople on these teams.
No, it's how did you come up with that?
$50 a seat.
It's not 1,000.
It's $50 a seat times.
It's $50 a seat per month per day. So it's
got it,
50. It'll be like 600.
Got it. Divided by I forgot to divide
so
by 12.
Normally it's
there.
about anywhere from $800 to $1,000 per seat per year.
Got it. Got it.
So companies with several dozens or hundreds of people. I mean, that's the range.
Back though, to my original question though. Everyone paid it. Nobody said no. So what do you? I mean, you people would argue you priced it too low. Everyone agreed.
No, people negotiated the price, but honestly, we didn't care so much. I mean, we're building a big company. We didn't care so much about like maximizing like every penny that we can get from those customers. It wasn't like the thinking. We just wanted to a price that isn't cheap, because if you sell cheap, you aren't really learning anything. So if there were like objections, we wanted to give like a reasonable price. Price is pretty close to what we would ultimately charge. So if people said no, we'd learn what we're doing wrong. Okay. And people did negotiate to try to get like the best deal. And don't forget, we're selling to sales leaders. So they love negotiation.
You got to make them feel like they won.
Yeah. So, but we weren't focused like on squeezing like every like 10 or 20% that we can. It was like getting the customer. Plus we're grateful. I mean, these are companies that help us. So why should we, I mean, they deserve something. And the other things that we did, we said, okay, the price that you're getting today, we're going to guarantee it forever. Okay,
because you're just nicer than me, Amit. That's the lesson here. I'm more capitalistic than you are.
Trust me, I'm pretty capitalistic, but we think about it long term. I mean, when you grow so quickly, the early customers don't really matter, because you're growing like 300 to 400% every year. So like these extra 10% you're going to get from renewals at existing customers doesn't really move the needle. So you much better off focus on getting them excited, getting the new customers, and it just doesn't matter. It doesn't move the needle.
So you've gone from you've gone. Sorry, we're running out of time. I want to get some other questions in. So you went from 12 customers up to 200 today. What channel are you most heavily relying on to drive that customer growth? Is there an app exchange you're ranking really high in besides G2 Crowd, or is it outbound sales? What are you doing?
So it's a combination. I mean, we have lists of companies. We know that our ideal customer profiles, and we're using lists. We did early on. We did some outbound sales. We're doing conferences. We have quite a few inbounds, and 20 to 30% of our business comes from referrals, from either people that used us in one company and moved to another companies, or heard from a friend, or saw us, so there's a lot of that going on. The buzz around the company is incredible these days. So we're getting a growing amount of inbound leads.
And generally speaking, when you look at your fully weighted CAC, so all your conference spend, any direct spend, plus salespeople, salaries and all that, generally, what are you comfortable spending to acquire one of these new customers?
Well, you're not, without getting into numbers, we're not necessarily looking to be as efficient as we can, like in our first year. Okay, the thing is like to grow as quickly as we can. It's like fast growth, okay, to grow as quickly. What we have noticed that, and we spoke a little bit like in rough strokes about the deal size, right? But what we have noticed that about on average, our accounts grow 50% within the first 6 months. There's a lot of expansion. So every dollar turns to $1.50 within 2 quarters from purchase. And we've seen it like pretty consistently. So we're looking at the lifetime value of the customers.
So like, what do you
right
assume?
now
What do you assume that is at a minimum?
So our churn right now is close to 0. From the 200 so far, I mean, it is early, but we lost like 2 or 3 customers, and none of them because they weren't using the product. Either the company had changed or got acquired or something like that.
And that 0%, that's logo. That's obviously not logo churn because you lost 3. So is that revenue churn is 0%?
So I said no. So as I said, in terms of like logo churn, it's like close to 0. Instead of the 200, there are only 3. Okay, none of them is. And in terms of revenue churn, we're at minus 53. Okay, so our accounts grow quickly. A lot of them like triple, double because they start with sales, they move to customer service, they add more teams, they move to add other units in a company. So there's a lot of growth. So we're well in the negative churn pretty consistently so far.
Yeah. So then that's on an annual basis, obviously, correct? Net negative by 53. Yeah. Where going back to things like managing like payback period, that's obviously an efficiency metric. You said you're not focused on efficiency right now, you're focused on growth. So maybe your payback period is longer than other companies that are trying to optimize. What do you try and keep payback period around?
So right now it's about, if I'm not mistaken, it's about 1.5 years.
Okay. Yep. So call it 18 months there. And what you're saying is someone starts in the low tens of thousands. They're increasing that by about 50% or 150%. Sorry, 50% in the first 6 months or first 2 quarters.
Right.
And so, that's going from, I'm going to say 30 grand up to 45 grand, something like that in terms of ARR. So you're spending, call it 50, 55 grand, or you're comfortable spending 50, 55 grand to bring on one of these new logos. Okay, got it. And most of those, breakdown of the 52 folks, how many of those, you said 32 are engineering, are all the rest sales and outbound, or how many folks are dedicated to sales?
No, we have in sales, we have 6 in sales, we have 6 in customer success, we have tech support, 1 in tech support, and sales development, I think about 8. And then there's like a little bit of a marketing and obviously finance and administration.
Last economics question before we wrap up with the famous five. How do you make sure you don't lie to yourself about lifetime value? If you just take your economics and you multiply them, you could argue pretty rationally that these customers are infinitely valuable.
I'm not sure. So far, I mean, I just, I try to be paranoid. Again, I try to look at the actual facts and numbers. I know that our history is fairly short so far. So we have about 1.5 years of renewal data. Okay. And so far it's been amazing. So when we actually plan for worse. So I've planned for losing 20% of the logos and being at maybe like 10%, minus 10% churn. And then we try to beat that goal, okay, versus like assuming that that's always going to happen. So the plans are a little conservative.
So what is your conservative LTV in terms of dollars? What is your conservative LTV number? I mean, you're talking like 400 grand, $500,000, $1 million, 5 million?
Yeah, where I was getting to is like specific numbers, but it is too early. So you understand the range right now. If you multiply right now we have close to 0 logo churn, and we have definitely substantial, well in the negative zone revenue churn. So you can do the math. I mean, that's I don't know if it's
I did the math. That's why I asked the question. If I do the math, you could argue infinite. You could say they never churn. These people are worth 100 million each, which is a lie. You and I both know you're never going to have an individual customer pay you $1 billion. So what I'm saying is the math doesn't work. How do you keep yourself rational? What do you assume a minimum lifetime value is?
I'd say 5 years is reasonable.
Okay. Got it. And last question, shifting over to product. It's a tough space. I mean, there's a lot of people in the space. DialSource has really monopolized Salesforce as a channel. They've raised $7 million. They're doing north of 15 million in ARR right now with about 200 to $1,000 in terms of customers. Conversa is growing quickly. Call tracking metrics is bootstrapped with Todd. They're doing well. When you're on calls winning deals, why are you winning deals over these similar products?
This product are similar, and you're actually comparing us to products that we're not even in their space. I mean, we're doing different things. We're never compete with them, and there's no Gong. Most of these products, if I understand them correctly, okay, they sell to different buyers. They sell to marketing folks or processing inbound inquiries, trying to launch kind of like phone-based campaigns. People are calling, and this very first contact of the lead, and then do some reasoning about what they're saying on the calls. Did I get it right?
No. I mean, the reason I asked that, I know you compete with these people because I've had other B2B SaaS CEOs on, and when I ask them what their favorite tool is, they'll mention someone in the space, and I'll say, who else did you look at? And they said, we also looked at Gong. So I know you compete definitely on some of these budgets, and these are $200 million company CEOs I have on. So they all do some form of call tracking metrics to record and transcribe, specifically in the sales tech stack. So I'm just curious, when you're winning deals and someone brings up one of these other guys, what is the reason you're winning?
I don't know. I'll beg to differ here because I don't see these companies ever. Okay, so maybe we're mixing. One of us is mixing some of these companies or names.
Who would you say you compete with most directly?
So what Gong does, it's actually for B2B sales, for long sales cycle. We sell to VP of sales. It is a new space. Okay, we're winning. Okay, because the customer experience is addictive. People start using it and it goes viral. Like just the toughest thing to adopt new technology is to get the salespeople to adopt the product and to actually use it. Salespeople are pretty picky in what they use, right? Gong, you start the trial and then it just starts to spread like fire within your organization. People get excited. I mean, just look, just posted something on LinkedIn today and you can see the responses. I mean, I love Gong. Gong is insane. It's crazy. That's the response that we're getting, and that's why it does something extremely valuable for salespeople. And the user experience, it's very, very easy to use, and there's nothing that they need to do. They just get insights and they get information, and they can ask for help. That's why companies buy Gong. Competition really isn't our problem. It is a new space.
Got it. Makes good sense. I mean, let's wrap up here with the famous five. Number one, what's the last business book that you read?
I'm reading Principles right now.
Ray Dalio, that's a good one. Number two, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Well, I always like the Benioff, like Cloud Book. I mean, that's I'm not stalking him on a daily basis, but I like his thinking, and that book was inspiring.
And Beyond the Cloud as a title, that's a good one. Number three, besides your own, I mean, what's your favorite online tool for building a business?
For running a business?
For building Gong.
Great question. Well, one of the things that I wouldn't say like building a company. One of the things that help us early on is a tool for self-scheduling. When I was still doing some of the sales, instead of like having SDRs, we didn't have any. So we just put like a self-schedule link on a website, and we started getting like lots of demo requests. It was incredible.
So
my calendar was just filled with
What's the tool?
It's called Calendly.
Yep, Calendly. Good stuff. All right, number four. How many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Usually on average about 5.
Okay, that's pretty almost superhuman then. All right, and what's your situation? Married, single? You have kids?
Married for almost 20 years. 2 boys, 15 and 19.
Congrats! And how old are you, Amit?
Thank you very much. I'm 53.
All right, last question. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
Let's I wish I learned to delegate more like early on. That's just let go and let people do their stuff.
There you guys have it.
Yeah.
Delegate earlier from Amit. Had successes under his belt, 4 to be exact, in 2016. Said, you know what, I'm going to go out and do this thing myself. It started with a slide deck, and he raised $6 million to build out the tech, which is not easy. He's got 30 engineers on his team today, a total of 52 people. Again, helping folks understand sales, transcriptions, understanding sales calls and who's performing well, why they're performing well, who's not performing well. Highest reviewed on G2 Crowd, which is obviously a nice thing to have, but does it translate to revenue? The answer so far is yes. They have over 200 customers paying an average ACV first year of in the low tens of thousands. So you can do the math in terms of seeing revenue metrics there. First year growth is healthy. A lifetime value to CAC, still figuring it out because they're super early. Payback period, though, is less than 18 months. Amit, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thank you very much, Nadine.